watching this program, you find yourself saying, I just can't believe this. It might not be because it's untrue, but possibly because it doesn't fit with your beliefs. Some of the areas in this program may challenge the way you think, because the easiest thing to be is skeptical and superior. For many people, it's much more difficult to be honestly open-minded. This evening, we'll meet a woman who not only claims she talks to ghosts, but records them on tape as well. We travel to Africa to witness a bizarre ritual in which a black witch doctor hands on ancient paranormal secrets to a white man. Also, a way to find out if you're psychic in a unique TV experiment. First, though, despite the fact that many studies have shown that psychic healing really works, skeptics often dismiss it as merely being all in the mind. So we wanted to devise a way of eliminating the possible placebo effect. We asked a highly accomplished healer to see if his powers would work on animals, and then work on a complete skeptic, who also happens to be one of England's star rugby players. The results were fascinating. The laying on of hands is one of the oldest forms of traditional healing and has been practiced for thousands of years. Some people believe that it allows electromagnetic energy to flow from one body into another. In this way, the patient supposedly receives a revitalizing charge from the fingers of the healer that aids recovery. Malcolm Besant is convinced he has this ability.
When I'm working on somebody, I usually feel a tingling heat in my hands, but very often in my entire body. My whole body seems as though it's getting very hot, but it seems to really focus through my hands.
Depending upon the condition he's treating, it takes a minimum of 3 half-hour sessions for Malcolm to produce a noticeable effect.
It's a bit like jump-starting a car from another car's battery, and it seems that I am able to focus and direct a pulse of my energy into the other person. The person I'm working on generally feels the heat from my hands, and very often a tingling pins and needles thing all over their body sometimes. But usually they feel very relaxed, and very often, in fact, they go to sleep.
But to see if Malcolm's claims were true, and to rule out the possibility of a placebo effect, we asked him to treat a patient who was unlikely to succumb to positive suggestion, Sasha the dog.
Immediately prior to Sasha's treatment, she'd been suffering from 3 rather painful conditions. Chronic arthritis of the lower spine and hind legs, coupled with an ulcerative skin condition and an acute eczema of the lower back.
She had been increasingly despondent, depressed, rarely disinterested, didn't want to go out, was eating, but a depressed dog.
These conditions were so painful that we were beginning to wonder whether Sasha really her quality of life was coming to an end, and whether we should seriously consider putting her to sleep.
Malcolm treated Sasha for half an hour on 3 separate occasions.
Sasha reacted very peacefully whenever Malcolm was here, which was a little unusual for a dog to lie quite still for about half an hour with a total stranger with hands on her. I was surprised, but she seemed peaceful.
Initially, she would be completely indifferent, and then after a few minutes, she would look up and look around as though she was wondering what was going on and where the heat was coming from that she could feel.
I saw Sasha 2 days after Malcolm's final treatment, and yes, there was certainly an improvement in both her skin conditions, and to a certain extent her arthritis was much more comfortable. But I think the most striking thing was the psychological effect that Sasha had obviously received.
After his 3rd visit, when I took her for her normal walk, it was almost a different dog. She was the dog she'd been before this terrible depression had struck her. She was lively, she trotted ahead of me on the golf course, whereas before I'd been almost persuading her, almost dragging her out. Her old interest had come back.
I have to say that it was remarkable, but I can't explain it.
And of course, neither can the dog. So to find out what it's really like to be at the receiving end, we asked the very skeptical England rugby star Ben Clark to see what Malcolm could do with a particularly troublesome injury.
Well, I've had a hip problem for a while now. I probably got it last June, and it's been sort of niggling me and aggravating me since then, coming on and off. And it's just one of those injuries which I've struggled really to get a grip of.
Ben Clark almost to the line. He's there. A great try for England.
I've seen various different people and had different scans and checkups, and everyone's really just found it difficult to find out exactly what the problem was. And the problem really is that it goes and then it comes back, and there's not a lot of consistency in it. It's just been a very niggly injury.
Like Sasha the dog, Ben had 3 half-hour sessions with Malcolm.
It's a strange feeling. I wasn't sure what was going to happen first of all, but I felt some warmth there, and I could feel a sort of pulsing feeling around where the hands were, so which I wasn't expecting, almost as if I was being touched.
With Ben, I had been told he had a groin injury, but when I first worked on him, I immediately felt that in fact the injury had more to do with his left ankle, which he in fact confirmed the following day. And I worked pretty much on his ankle, and he felt the improvement in his groin as a consequence.
And after the 3 sessions, how did Ben feel?
Well, the treatment's finished now, and it's been a remarkable improvement. I'm absolutely delighted. I've got to say, I wasn't sure about the treatment when I first started, but I'm certainly more of certainly a supporter of it now.
But if this ancient form of healing can be so very effective, why is it regarded by so many these days with distinct suspicion?
Generally speaking, I always get some kind of positive response, some greater than others, some quicker than others, although, again, I probably have a higher rate of success with animals than with people. I'm not really sure why. I can only assume it's because there's no intellect to get in the way.
According to research, 42% of the population claims to have had some contact with the other side. These days, with all the technology available, crystal balls are out and electronics are in, as we found out when we visited Sarah Estep on a ghost hunt in her hometown of Annapolis in the United States.
EVP is electronic voice phenomena, and this is recording voices from another dimension through a tape recorder. To me, it is the best objective evidence we have that we survive death in an individual conscious state.
Sarah and her daughter Becky claim to have been taping ghostly voices for more than 20 years. But when she first heard of the phenomenon, Sarah was extremely skeptical.
I thought the idea was preposterous, that I never would get any, that no one could get voices. So I decided to give it 7 days. And on the morning of the 6th day, I recorded my first voice.
She played the tape, and she had asked the other side, who is in charge of the next level or the next dimension of existence? And my mother said, now see if you can hear what that response is, see if you can get it on your own without the use of earphones. And I heard distinctly the response came back, there is the Christ.
Sarah and Becky tape the voices either at home or at places of historic interest, such as the 200-year-old William Paker House in Annapolis.
We come in friendship and in peace. We mean you no harm. The box I have in my hand is called a tape recorder. We usually walk around for a minute or two, and sometimes you get a feeling that there might be something in this corner or that corner or around the fireplace. And so I will stop there for a minute and ask a question, And I always allow time after my question for an answer to come through, if one is going to come through.
If you're in a location where a lot of emotion did take place, positive or negative, your chances of getting messages tend to be enhanced. The chances are increased that you will get messages, you will get entities trying to come through just on the power of the emotion that occurred at that point in time.
Sarah doesn't hear anything when recording. It's only on playback the ghostly voices become apparent. Sometimes, she says, the spirits answer her questions directly. But Sarah's also discovered voices that have been recorded backwards or on the wrong side of the tape.
I say that only someone from another dimension would be capable of such a feat. And on one of my tapes, I asked them, I said, please tell me, do you find any difference between one side of the tape to the other? And a very clear male voice came back and said, we use either side. If anyone died here while you were living here, spirits come through to us for different reasons. A lot of them at times come through and ask for help, and I felt that I was probably on a level where they were having difficulty making their transition. I have heard from friends and loved ones who have died. Sometimes they make very meaningful comments of their own, and or they just, I call them my drop-in guests. They drop in for a time or two and speak to me, and then they go on their way. The spirits are coming through our electronic instruments now because we are a generation of electronics. I always say that if the Greeks had invented tape recorders 1,000 years ago, they would have come through 1,000 years ago on tape recorders. They are also moving more and more from tape recorders into computers, and they are also coming through television to a certain extent.
Some skeptics suggest that Sarah's equipment is working as an unintentional radio receiver and that she's recording fragments of radio broadcasts. But Sarah is adamant that her voices are really from the spirit world and says that the contents of the messages are the real proof.
Now, there's no one out in radio land or driving a taxi cab or a fire engine or whatever that's going to come through and say, Sarah, I love you. Sarah, I'm in your office. That, you know, that is completely ridiculous.
In just a moment, an easy way to find out whether you're psychic. Before we started the programme this evening, we conducted an experiment with some of the members of the studio audience to discover if the average person can do something that's considered by the skeptics to be absolutely impossible. And it's this. We wondered, could any of our volunteers project their minds to another person somewhere else and make an accurate sketch of what they could see, either around the person or through his or her eyes? It's a psychic technique that's known as remote viewing. The intelligence community has been successfully using it for years, and no one knows why it works. It just does. So our 5 volunteers sat with their paper and pencils here, and the person they were to remote view was me. So I went to another room in a hidden location with a camera. Actually, it's our wardrobe store, complete with shelves, laundry equipment, a television monitor, an ironing board, and clothing hanging from a rail. And for good measure, I bounced a basketball. How much, if any of this, would they be able to remote view? So let's see how they got on. Can you show me your drawings, please? What were you experiencing when you drew this?
Well, it was quite strange. It started off with lots of different impressions, different images, until finally there was a very clear sense that you were handing clothing, coat hangers, that sort of thing.
OK. What about you, madam?
I visualised some bright lights, and then I kind of had a sense of you spinning an object of some kind.
All right, OK, yes. Could be a basketball. What about you, sir? What have you drawn there?
TV. I thought you were actually playing a game, possibly on TV, or watching TV.
Well, I wasn't playing a game, but yes, I was watching a TV whilst I was bouncing the basketball. What about you, madam? This is a very interesting drawing.
Well, I saw a close-up of your hand and something circular or a ball sort of falling downward or definitely moving.
Thank you. Now, Paul, this for me is the most interesting. What have you drawn there?
Well, I drew an ironing board and also a clothes rail with clothes hanging down from it. Also a kind of a screen thing that I thought was up there. And that's about it, really.
Well, that's very interesting because that is almost exactly what I could see whilst I was bouncing the basketball. As I said, no one can explain for sure how or why it works, but I think you'll agree this is a very interesting demonstration. You've seen how simple it is to do, and it's a genuine paranormal experiment. You can easily try it for yourself. If you have a fax machine, you could ring someone and ask them to remote view where you are or what you're doing. It doesn't matter if they're around the corner or in Australia. The distance doesn't seem to matter. Thank you for a most surprising result. Next, let's go to South Africa to meet a practicing Zulu witch doctor. It seems the authorities don't approve of what he does and they're trying to stop him. But he won't let them stand in his way, and he continues to practice his bizarre rituals and pass on his strange secrets. Christian preachers deserted this old mission settlement on the road to Mafeking long ago. It's now a centre for those who prefer the old traditions and beliefs of Black Africa. Martin Erasmus wants to join them. He's here to learn the paranormal secrets of witch doctors, who call themselves Sangomas, secrets of healing, of ancient tribal history, and the mysteries of the spirit world. His teacher is Credo Mutwa, who will initiate Martin and pass on the ancient knowledge.
Every one of these necklaces records very special knowledge of our people. This is a chief. This is a flying saucer. And these are people running away. These things have been known in Africa for thousands of years.
And he says it's just part of the vast store of knowledge he's inherited, which, among other things, tells of what happened when aliens landed here centuries ago.
Our people have known about these creatures much more than the people of Europe have known about them. And when we try to tell white people about these things, because we call them spirits, the white people say, superstitious blacks. What do they know? But we know more, much, much, much more. Many of us are dead already. In the whole of South Africa, there are now only 2 of us left alive. And when we are gone, all this knowledge will go.
After his initiation, Martin could be the chosen one to carry these secrets to the next generation. Yet on this day, he refuses to speak. So why was he, a white man, chosen to be a Sangoma?
First, you get sick. You get sick with a terrible illness which Western doctors cannot cure. And this illness is today identified by white doctors as the Shaman Syndrome. And we call it Twasa, the dawn sickness. It's a very cruel sickness, man. If the sickness is very intense, as is the case with Martin, then whether he likes it or not, he must be a Sangoma. No one wants to be a Sangoma.
As the ceremony progresses, one of the psychic helpers enters a trance-like state. They believe she's now speaking to the spirit world.
If a child is lost, ma'am, and people come to Nobela over here, and they want to find out where the child is, you know what Nobela will do? She won't use any mambo-jumbo. She won't use any superstition. She uses ordinary mind power. She listens with her mind to the thoughts of the lost child. Because when a child is lost, it thinks about its parents and it directs powerful thoughts at the parent. I want you to listen to me, Martin. This day you are going to take the path of being a Sangoma, a healer amongst the healers of this land. You are going to be part of a dying heritage, a heritage that is being deliberately destroyed. And many of the things that you will be done to you and with you are things that you will not understand.
The ritual becomes a celebration that goes on most of the night. A goat has been sacrificed to take a special message to the spirits who they believe selected Martin to be a Sangoma in the first place. The initiation has gone well. But the next morning, they face a different reality. Credo Mutwa, the last Zulu witch doctor, and his family and followers have been ordered to leave the settlement immediately. The authorities are determined to stamp out their activities, and the entire place will be bulldozed to dust. But Martin got what he came for and departed with the secrets of the visiting aliens and the Sangomas. And when the time comes, he says, they'll be passed on to others. Nobody knows where he is now. That's all we have time for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please join me again next week for another amazing journey into the paranormal world. Good night.